Welcome to Will Read. My name is Will. Today I'm reading The Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart by Robert Bly, James Hillman, Michael Meade. The Cultivated Heart. How blessed is the man who, like Hafez, has tasted in his heart the wine made before Adam. Version by R.B. What is the cultivated heart? We know that we are not talking about the educated mind, though the subtle mind is not ruled out, or the disciplined body, though a vigorous body is not ruled out. We aren't talking of the intense will either, that intensified clarity of purpose, which in a warrior carries him past childish distractions and adolescent comfort longings to his goal. The heart is a place of tenderness. The cultivated heart receives intensification toward tenderness. In Europe, love and the cultivated heart become noticeable in the 12th century. Men were working on the cultivation of the heart when they accepted vows to be courteous. To be courteous means to honor elders, to offer praise and support to other men, whose fragility was kept in mind, and, above all, to do honor in the most difficult situations to women. When we read the literature of the time, we realize what an enormous step that was for Western or European man. To judge by stories, reports, poems, and memoirs, a typical male act before the time of courtesy would have been this: a man on a horse, enjoying some wealth and privilege, riding through a farm valley, sees a young woman gathering hay. He gets off and makes love to her, and that's that. Then he gets on his horse and rides on. This situation turns up in poems over several hundred years. Once the Southern European man took vows of courtesy, the details of the narrative changed. First, the man may talk and even try to speak to the young woman personally. He may make promises, "Come live with me and be my love," which he may or may not intend to keep. Eventually, he may listen for her reply. Perhaps she says she wants some proof of the sincerity of his promises, or perhaps she tells him not to bother getting off his horse, just to ride on. If he obeys, it amounts to some evidence that he has a tender heart. People in the Provence region eventually adopted the word amour to describe this new emotion associated in their minds with passionate delicacy and courteous affection. This emotion may have been well known in earlier Celtic culture, but it felt new in much of continental Europe. It involved rejection of many Catholic doctrines, including the self-disgust taught by the Church. Lovers of language felt a great thrill when they realized that if you spelled Roma backward, it turned into amor. The Church did feel that admirers of amor were enemies, and allegiance to amor was one of the reasons the Church launched the Albigensian Crusade, which effectively destroyed the entire provincial culture. We would say today that the man who felt amour had made himself transparent to the great feminine without denying his masculinity or becoming an imitation woman. It was a lady accompanied by goatmen leading her. Her hair held earth, her eyes were dark, a double flute made her move. "Oh, love, where are you leading me now?" Robert Creeley. I don't mean to imply that new love suggests atheism or hatred of God. On the contrary, the cultivated heart is religious, courteous toward God and his mother. People noticed, however, that Augustinian self-disgust and hatred of sexuality did not mingle well with amour. Dante, inheriting 2 centuries of this embodied speculation, wrote a famous poem that clarified the images for many people. Amor y cor gentil sono una cosa, siccome il saggio in suo dettato pone, y cose senza l'un l'altro esser osa, com alma razional senza ragione. New love and the gentle heart are the same thing, just as the wise man has set down in his poems, and one without the other could no more exist than the thoughtful soul exist if thought did not. He goes on to say that the gentle or cultivated heart resembles a large house, and far inside that house amour is sleeping. The problem is how the new love, so well insulated from noise, can be awakened. He says that beauty glimpsed by the eyes begins the process, and not the beauty of a teenager or a model, but the beauty of a savvy woman, who we assume would be a woman with a serious and educated heart. The cultivated heart, imagined then as a house with many rooms or an alchemical vase able to sustain high temperatures to assist creation of new substances, or imagined as a walled garden with rare flowers, order, solitude, place for intimacy with another, disdain of ordinary chaotic life, represented immense effort. It still does. Male initiation does not move toward machoism. On the contrary, it moves towards achieving a cultivated heart before we die. I am not I am this one, walking beside me, whom I do not see, whom at times I manage to visit, and at other times I forget. Juan Ramon Jimenez. For us in the West, it is humbling to realize that this movement was pursued more enthusiastically, more massively, more subtly, more widely in the Middle Ages and early Renaissance than it is today. Much of the impulse for this movement came directly from Persian and Arabic piety and Muslim ideas of chivalry which Spain and France absorbed. For many years, French scholars insisted that the first provincial love poems came directly out of French folk life and owed nothing to the Arabs. Now we know that the early poems of Guillaume X were, in fact, virtual translations from the Arabic. The original Arabic poems, with the rhyme structure intact, have been found. Islamic civilizations at its highest point encouraged and achieved marvelous cultivation of the lover's heart. Rumi says, "No one knows our name until our last breath goes out." American readers have adopted Rumi and Kabir and Mirabai poems with great joy recently, as if they were long-lost children, and they are. If the heart is a garden, then it's clear we don't mean an open garden, a garden set on the prairie through which horses or pigs could run if they wished. The open heart paradoxically needs walls, firm ones, so that it is a hortus inclusus, a closed garden, a garden with limits. Only there, in a space withdrawn from the public, can we grow the vines that require sun and quiet, those vines trained by our ancestors. Hafez says, "How blessed is the man who, like Hafez, has tasted in his heart the wine made before Adam." R.B.